Welcome back. So today I thought we could dive into something a little bit fun that I think everyone in the field can relate to. I think all of us have a backstock of photos on our phones of interesting or crazy things that we've seen over the course of our jobs. One of the most common things is pictures of x-rays. So I went through all of my photos from the last few years and dug out some of the most interesting x-rays that I've taken, and I'm gonna give you a little bit more context and what was going on behind the image. Okay, so we'll start with one that is just burned into my brain, and I'm going to show you a comparison just to give you an idea of just how crazy this x-ray is. So this was pretty early in my career. Luna is a very skittish, scared little princess. There was a time when she would be startled and we would smell something and maybe find a spot of something on like a blanket or a couch or something like that. I thought it was just because she got scared. She was expressing her anal glands. If you haven't smelled anal glands, you are lucky. They have a really strong, almost kind of fishy smell. That is exactly what we were smelling. So I didn't think much of it until we were noticing the smell and the spots were still happening even when she wasn't obviously startled. So I took her into work. We caught some of her urine and it was a little bit dark and kind of brown color. And so we thought maybe she just had a urinary tract infection. Then the vet says, let's take an x-ray too, just in case. And there in the picture was a small bladder stone. Oh yeah, I need my props. I forgot. Okay, I actually kept Luna's bladder stones. I do collect oddities and weird things. We'll make a video about that later. But these are her bladder stones. So they are, for reference, here's my finger. So, you know, they're not that big, like the size of a pebble. Now, Luna's a very stoic dog when it comes to pain. She just keeps going and acts like nothing is wrong, which is exactly what happened when she tore her CCL. She just kind of like hiked up her leg and just kept running. But the reality, even though we weren't completely realizing it, was that she was having trouble peeing and it was likely very painful. And that was just with those two little stones. Now I want you to look at this picture. Now this dog is basically the same size as Luna. I'll put a video of her here. She's actually a little bit smaller than Luna. X-ray shows 3 gigantic bladder stones all smashed together in her tiny little bladder. This dog was peeing straight, what we call frank blood, and she was very painful. We had to be very careful about handling her because she didn't want to be touched around her abdomen, which obviously. And after taking this x-ray and preparing her for surgery, when she was laying on her back and we were shaving her belly, you could actually see and feel the bladder stones poking up underneath her skin. It's honestly a wonder her bladder hadn't ruptured yet. Now this isn't one of that dog's bladder stones. It's from actually another dog that this happened to at a previous shelter. But this is just one of the stones and the size. So again, you know, it's very, very huge considering what Luna's were. So, and it's hard, you can hear it. It's like calcified. And that's how they are when they're in the bladder. Bladder stones are normally caused by an inability to metabolize everything in an animal's diet. So certain things in that diet that they themselves are not able to filter out through their kidneys will just sit in the bladder and begin to calcify, and all of that sediment is going to come together and combine and bind together to make a bladder stone. There are different kinds of stones and they can be sent to certain labs for testing to figure out exactly why or what the thing is that that specific animal is having a problem with and what the best diet is for them moving forward. There are several urinary specific diets for dogs. Luna is on one and hasn't had an issue yet, knock on wood. She ended up recovering well, got adopted with a consultation. We recommend you getting her on a urinary diet and following up with your vet to avoid more stones in the future. Okay, the next one I actually took when I worked in an emergency clinic. The emergency clinic I worked at was in the Midwest. It was the only one around for several miles, so this was really the only place that a lot of people could go for emergency vet care and specialty vet care. So there was a very large farming ranching community around here, a large conservative population where most people own a lot of guns and things like that. Not knocking it, that's just the culture that was around there. So now I don't know the whole story. I just know what the owners told us, and even then I wasn't the tech dealing directly with this case. I just helped with the x-rays, helped hold the dog for like shaving and wound care and things like that. But somehow this dog was in the vicinity when a neighbor fired a shotgun. So whether he was shooting at the dog or just shooting near the dog was close enough. Now, when we're looking at the actual dog, I think he had a bigger wound on his toes because he did end up having a couple broken toes. So I think he was right there when most of the shot hit on his toes, and then buckshot kind of sprayed out. So what you see is this big wound, and then as we kept shaving up and up his legs, we would just see these little like pinprick little punctures, and they weren't bleeding. They weren't that big. I mean, literally, if you make a dot on a paper with a pencil, that's what it was. So we just kept shaving up his legs, finding all these little pricks, and then the vet ordered x-rays. So when we took the x-ray, we could see all of the buckshot shrapnel all through his legs. Luckily, the dog only broke a few toes. I don't really remember what they ended up doing that night. I think we probably bandaged the foot, and because he was stable, they went home to follow up the next day with their private vet to see what the course of action is, whether they're gonna go in and take out all that shrapnel, or at least the ones around his broken toes, and then what they're gonna do to help those toes heal. They would follow up with all that at their private vet. So the next one is a little bit sadder, but I wanted to include it because it is such a horrific image in a way that it just sticks with me. Every time I think of like crazy x-rays, like this is the one that is just at the forefront of my mind. So there's trigger warning. I probably won't show you the video of the actual dog because it is upsetting. So you'll just see the x-ray, but just in case you don't want to see that, feel free to click ahead. But this puppy was brought to the shelter by an animal control officer, and it had been found near railroad tracks. So we don't know if it was hit by a train, if it was hit by a car and then abandoned there and somehow made its way there, if something else happened to cause their injuries. We have no idea what actually happened. She did have a broken jaw, and we suspected that she had a broken leg because one of her legs was like kind of at a crazy angle, but we had no idea what we were gonna find when we eventually took this x-ray. Now, looking at this, there's a couple things going on. So you can see on her right side, the leg that looks fairly normal with the exception of being broken at the head of the femur. But the left side, she's got an insanely broken pelvis, and her leg has been so smashed to pieces that it's trying to heal in whatever way possible, which means it's forming a callus around all of those bones in the way that they shattered and are still under her skin. I'm sure there's even more going on than what I can see. The vets could probably see so much more. Again, I have a video of her that I'm not going to show, but I do keep it just as like a reminder that she was literally wagging her tail, you know, nudging my hand for pets, trying to eat, even though her jaw is literally hanging off of her face and she can't close her mouth. So the next day, because of her extensive wounds, we elected to humanely euthanize her. And I think she wasn't able to control her bowels and her urination, and that is a big thing that comes with pelvis fractures, which she had. So I don't remember specifically, but that was at least a possibility we had to consider, and that was a factor that was saying like, hey, this dog has, you know, really difficult injuries that could have multiple problems later and is not viable with life. We're gonna end on a happier note. So this dog came in to shelter with a limp, and then we took an x-ray of the leg that she was limping on. So you can see in this that her bone looks like it's kind of disintegrating in a way. It doesn't have the regular opaqueness of the rest of her bones that you can see in this x-ray, so something is kind of eating away at this bone. After some testing, we found that she had a advanced valley fever infection. Valley fever is a fungal infection that exists only in the American Southwest. It is a fungus that lives in the desert ground, and so when the dirt and stuff is kicked up, it like activates that fungus, kicks it up into the air, and we all breathe it in. Humans can get valley fever too, so everyone is breathing this in, and then it just kind of depends on how it proliferates in each individual's body. So for her, she contracted an infection and it had progressed to the point where it was in her bones and eating away at her femur. Valley fever is treated with a long course of antifungal medications and also steroids as well. So the next photo is of her leg after a few months of treatment, and she was about to be cleared and available for adoption. What I really love about these images, which I'll show them side by side here, is that you can see how the medicine stopped the fungus and allowed the bone to regrow. As a tiger owner, when you're giving your animal medications, you're looking for improvement with their symptoms or how they act. So you're looking for kind of a clearer nose or more energy, or they're back to their happy bouncy selves, like, you know, they are acting normal. I really love when you can have tangible proof that your treatment was working, like a photo, a visual proof that your treatment was successful and you are literally watching medicine work. So those are just a few of the crazy x-rays I've taken over the course of my career so far. If you have any crazy x-rays or stories to share, feel free to leave them down below. I'd love to read about them. Otherwise, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.